This quarter was another step in the right direction. We saw improvement in all of the key metrics across the board. What is the main takeaway that you yourself as the CEO of the business want investors to take away from this earnings report? And what should they be focusing on in the future as it relates to the story and the growth of Canopy?
Hey everyone, welcome to our latest TDR Cannabis Exclusive. Thanks for checking in. I'm your host, Shad Dales. A lot of you have been reaching out to us for the past couple of months. You wanted them? Well, we've got them. Let's welcome in the CEO of Canopy Growth, which trades on the ticker symbol on the NASDAQ under the ticker symbol CGC. David Klein, good to see you. Yes, our audience has been waiting for this for a while, and here you are.
Yeah, good to see you as well. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it. Anthony Verrill, thanks for checking in. This is going to be a good one, right?
Yes, I've been looking forward to this for a while. Ready to dive into the numbers and dive into the progressive story that Canopy's got for us.
Oh, man, we reached out to people who said, we're trying hard to get them on. And then a month, 2 months later, they were like, you guys are liars. But this solidifies everything. We're telling the truth. But David's on. Listen, wanted to first, we'll dive into the numbers in just a moment. But first when we look at these latest numbers, like what does this signal as a company, given the significant amount of change that your company has endured over the last 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, look, what I think this tells that the story's working. The things we've been saying for a while are working for us, right? We now have really attractive gross margins across our cannabis businesses. We're now putting on top line growth, and like let's just be honest here. Trying to grow a business very fast when we're not delivering on margins doesn't make sense, right? So we got the margins right. We're now growing the top line. This last quarter, we actually finished the transition to be 100% cannabis-focused business.
Yeah.
Because with the opportunities in front of us in cannabis, why would we want to be doing anything else? We've scheduled our Canopy USA vote.
Yeah, who would have thought focus 100% cannabis? But it all makes common sense, right? First up, I know there's a lot of investors have reached out to us asking about, financing, balance sheets. We're going to get into that next week with the second podcast that we're going to be doing with you, and we'll address that. But I want to first begin, let's take a little bit more in depth into some of these numbers, and it showcased sequential revenue growth across Canadian businesses, which is great, and a record quarter for medical and adult use sales. You achieved consolidated gross margins up 36% in Q3, with Canadian cannabis gross margins increasing to 28%, which was up 11% year over year. So what do you think was the main beneficiary of this sequential growth?
Yeah, I think it really comes back to having a business that's sized for the market that we're in. And so we can generate really strong margins with the footprint that we have today in Canada. And and now we feel really good about being able to tack on growth from there. And we have some really cool things coming up that I think will continue to drive our growth in the Canadian market.
That's great.
Yeah, David, congrats on the quarter. I mean, once again, one of the big, points around the Canopy story has been getting the SG&A down, starting to really lean out and right-size the business. And we saw a 40% reduction year over year in SG&A to $54 million for the quarter. I mean, is there a target that you're looking at to get that SG&A down to in the future, or are we kind of starting to really base out with that number as of last quarter and this quarter? The story has been the business is right-sized as it stands today.
Yeah, look, there's a little more cleanup that we can do in SG&A, and we always talk about having a bit of a war on costs going on around here, and so we'll keep looking at that. But we think for the most part, the size business that we have today is a business that is sustainable. It's a business that we can grow, and we think we're just about there. Okay.
And then another thing was the adjusted EBITDA. I know we saw a loss of $9 million versus the $113 million from the year prior, which is an 82% improvement. I mean, in the release today that you reaffirmed guidance to achieve positive adjusted EBITDA in each business unit exiting fiscal year 2024. Can you walk us really through how you get there to get these metrics into the positive range?
Yeah, so if you think about our business, it's our Canadian business which operates on a positive basis as we sit here today because of those gross margins. It's our Stores and Bickle business, which has always generated really strong gross margins and ultimately good financial performance. Our international business is up big, and that business is producing positive cash flow for us. And so you look across all of the businesses, and they're all doing well, and they're all growing. Then what we have is the cost of being a public cannabis company, and so those are the costs that we're working to outrun with top line growth. And so as long as each of the businesses are performing and we continue to grow, we overcome the cost of being a public cannabis company.
Okay. So basically the way the company's trending right now, it's trending in the direction of reaching those goals for the fiscal year 2024 guidance.
Yes.
And you mentioned S&B. I mean, S&B is a unit that it's obvious Canopy prides itself on. It's an innovative brand. It's a consumer-facing brand and the leader in the vape space that showed 54% sequential growth year over year in that market. I mean, some people feel it's, I don't want to say fragmented, but it's kind of a lost part of the story. How does that fit into the overall Canopy strategy, and why is that such a not a focal point, but a prideful brand in the Canopy portfolio?
I'll start with the brand first, right? Because I love having that brand in our portfolio. I think it creates a little bit of that premium halo for us. And, ultimately, when we can go to market the way we want to go to market, we want to walk into our customers and be able to have, be able to sell Storz & Bickel devices and sell Wana and sell Jetty and sell Tweed. And it's all part of the brand story that is Canopy. And, the new Venti that launched, you don't have to listen to me really. You can look at what you see on social media about the Venti. The throughput in that device, 20 liters a minute coming out of that device is just staggering throughput if you're a vape, a flower-based vape aficionado. So it's just outstanding devices. It's a business, by the way, that's doubled over the last 4 years at the top line level. Some of that growth has come from innovation. Some of it's from distribution. We're going to keep delivering on both of those components of the growth story going forward.
Yeah,
I actually have one of the Ventis on the way to me, so I will. I look forward to trying it out, and I'll definitely have a review and an opinion on the product moving forward. So I'm actually stoked to get my first S&B product. One other thing that has been a big part of the story.
Testimonial time.
Yeah. So one other big part of the story, the United States cannabis story, CUSA, it's been something that's top of mind to the Canopy story for a long time now. And that you mentioned in the earnings release that it's going to be a big part moving forward. And I mean, as we look to the largest cannabis market in the world, I mean, you also announced that there's going to be a special meeting and that there could be some, I don't want to call it light at the end of the tunnel, but some definitive information around that. Could you kind of walk us through what the process is going to be with filing that definitive proxy statement and then that special meeting that's coming up and the implications for Canopy at large?
Yeah, so we expect over the next week that we'll file our definitive proxy. We've already set our record date as of February 12th. So shareholders as of that date can vote at a meeting that we'll have on April 12th. And once we get past that vote, within days of clearing that vote, which is really to create exchangeable shares, which Constellation will move into.
Yeah.
Okay.
Within days of completing that vote, we'll then exercise our options on Wana, Jetty, and Acreage. And the value of that is those businesses can start working together. And I think that's really an underappreciated asset in general.
Yeah.
I think, Acreage being in markets like New Jersey, they're wholesaling in New York, they're in Ohio, they're in Pennsylvania. For us being able to talk about the financial performance of Acreage, Wana, and Jetty, I think it's just a misunderstood and underappreciated component of our story. And I'm really excited to be able to talk about it more.
This is a long time.
So is it, I was going to say, is it safe to say that once that proxy statement is filed and the vote is complete, is that the inflection point that Canopy actually enters the USA?
So Canopy USA,
Canopy USA to be clear.
USA, yes, will be fully functioning as soon as we get past that vote.
Okay, and then you mentioned that portfolio of assets: Wana brands, Jetty extracts, which are two legacy brands in the U.S. space, Acreage that has a a foundation that'll lay, I guess, the bedrock for the CUSA asset. I mean, a big theme on the back of something like Schedule 3 from the DEA or safer banking is consolidation. I mean, do you foresee growing that footprint and getting into other like marquee markets in the States down the road?
Yeah, I think yes, and I also want to throw out, when we talk about Acreage, they have a real powerful a brand in Superflex, which is won a number of awards in terms of the quality of the products out on the marketplace. So yeah, I think when we look at expansion, we would look at a branded expansion in specific categories, and building on kind of Acreage's base, but really more of the Wana model as we would proceed. But yeah, we're interested.
Canopy USA, long time coming, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of investors are like, that's been the big speculation for years. And I understand the Canadian market and it's an important one, but we all know when Canopy USA and the whole Acreage thing that went down, I'm trying to think of how many years ago is that now, 5 or 6 years ago. But a lot of momentum is building, as Anthony said, with potential rescheduling taking place. But when that does come to fruition, talk about just the opportunity as a whole in the U.S. market and what that presents for the overall industry.
Well, when you talk to Canadian LPs and you understand the environment that we have to compete in, and then you talk to the U.S. operators, which I do frequently. You really want to be in the U.S. The economics are very different. The dynamics in the market are very different. How you can interact with your consumers is very different, right? And so being able to access that market is critical. And we like the way that we can access that market for our investors. And again, it will be run by Canopy USA, but we'll access that market for our investors. And so, we'll have a dual listed company that can grow in Canada, but also can really build out the flag we've planted in the US.
And in a lot of ways, probably the main reason why Constellation wrote the check to begin with and invest in Canopy. It's all about the U.S. market. Saying all that, as you launch this Canopy USA, like what kind of interest and conversations are you generating both in New York, Toronto? Like, are you generating a lot of conversations and people reaching out, given the momentum that's building within the actual industry as well?
Yeah, I actually think that that as we get closer to the shareholder vote, I think it'll become more clear to people what it is that we're doing. So, literally right now, if you invest in Canopy today, you're investing in Wana. And if you're in the U.S. market and you see that brand on the shelf, or you've tried it before, you know how powerful it is. And I just think that part of the story isn't all that well understood. And I think that as we go through the next couple of months, I think it'll become more clear. And of course, after we close on those on the Canopy USA transaction, there will come a time when we'll be required to, even though we won't be consolidating the numbers into our financial statements, we'll be required to disclose those numbers so that everybody can see the powerful, economic engine that we have under the U.S. umbrella.
Yeah, we see the U.S. as a major growth driver, major part of the story moving forward for pretty much any cannabis company on the globe. But the global cannabis story is really something that's starting to take shape. Primarily Australia, the EU, and I mean your rest of the world. Cannabis revenue this quarter grew 81%, led by the Australian market. How important is that international story to the business as it relates to today? And are there plans to bolster that business in market or in continents such as Europe moving forward?
Yeah, look, our growth internationally will really come from bringing really good flower out of Canada into markets and just executing in those markets, right? So we'll still continue to kind of rely on our strategy of being asset light. So don't expect us to invest big sums in grow facilities in foreign markets. I think what we've learned in Canada, and even in to some extent as individual states have opened up in the U.S., things take longer than you think, and so we want to get into those markets with our brands and build as much of a business as we can, and then we'll pivot as we see markets really open.
With all the change that's gone on in the last 6 to 12 months, and we all know this Canadian cannabis space got off to a roaring start for all the wrong reasons, but do you honestly feel like in a lot of ways we're at a stage now where it's just like the changes we've made, the assets that we got rid of, it's like our story really comes to fruition rather quickly over these next 6, 12 months, especially with a lot of change potentially happening in the US, because we know change has taken a long time. But do you feel confidently that we are going to see a lot of this story take shape and come to fruition within the next year to answer a lot of questions and concerns that maybe some people have?
Look, that's what I think about every morning when I get up. Now that we've been able to get through all these changes, is that we now are at a place where our business works. Our Canadian business works. Storz & Bickel always has worked. Our international business works. We'll get Canopy USA off the ground. It all starts to come together in a way that I think the people inside of Canopy have believed for a while. I think we need to do the job of telling the story of what it is we have here, because I think it's unique and can be a super differentiated way of going about cannabis.
And I'm sure the Constellation executives are probably saying, all right already. Let's get the show on the road, right? But, long story short, these are great numbers, I think, for the most part, that I think people are starting to see, like, the ship's been righted. And, needless to say, you've had a lot of change over the past 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, and look, it's a tribute to the people that we have working in this business at all levels of the business. I was actually packing pre-rolls this past week in Smiths Falls, and the team is really excited. I really believe the folks that are here really want to be a part of this kind of cannabis revolution, and it's you can feel the excitement. You can feel the excitement here, and I want to make sure that I do a good job externally telling the story to our investors, because this is a very good story as we sit here today in 2024.
It's great. Anthony,
go ahead. I was going to say, in closing, I mean, this quarter was another step in the right direction. We saw improvement in all of the key metrics across the board. What is the main takeaway that you yourself, as the CEO of the business, want investors to take away from this earnings report? And what should they be focusing on in the future as it relates to the story and the growth of Canopy?
Yeah, look, I'd want to make sure that people are understanding who we are and where we are, right? Because as you guys have mentioned, there was a lot of hype and hyperbole around the industry in the beginning. Right now, we have a business that works. We have a business that can generate profit at each level, and we have a business that can grow.
Yeah.
And we're sitting here on top of the most exciting consumer trend of our lifetime. And, I feel like it's all coming together, and I can't wait to see the results roll in.
It's good. It's exciting. Okay. This is part one of our 2-part podcast. We're going to have part 2 next week. We're going to dive into some of the, like I said, balance sheet financing questions that a lot of investors have. But in the meantime, I know you've got to run. I know you're in a meeting with a lot of people and a lot of interviews here today, but great numbers, great turnaround in a short period of time that we see going. And listen, keep in touch, and we'll check back with you next week.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Good to see you.
Thank you, David.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. We appreciate all your feedback. So if you want to leave some comments, let us know what you think and what you want to learn of. Subscribe to our channel by clicking here. If you want to see more videos like this, then click here, because at the end of the day, we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.